Yo, so I'm gonna make a quick video because I've been asked a couple times now on my other LS swap posts or videos how to wire up your engine with the swap harness. I know I definitely understand how, if you haven't done it yet, it seems so confusing and it seems like there's a bunch of wires. And there is, I mean, I guess we could consider saying this is a bunch of wires, but it is not as hard or confusing as you assume by just looking at it if you haven't done it yet. Once you do one, I promise you it is super simple after you do that. But let's start with how you power up the harness. This is specific to Gen 3 only. Gen 4 is different. Gen 5 is different. And I say they're different because the harness itself is different. This is a drive-by cable setup. Drive-by wire is a little different, but not much different. Powering up the harness is the same exact way, drive-by wire, drive-by cable. It's just the throttle body sensors are different for drive-by cable and drive-by wire. So if you have drive-by wire, I'll try to explain the difference, but those are the only things that are different. And this is a cheap Amazon harness. This is the same as a cheap eBay harness. This is the same as a PSI harness for a third gen, or whatever harness you get for third gen LS engine. 4.8, 5.3, 5.7 LS1, 6.0, LQ4, LQ9. This harness is the same for all of them. So let's start with power. This on the fuse block, this red wire powers up your fuses. You have a fan relay and a fuel pump relay. I don't know, I can't tell you off the top of my head at the moment which one's which, but that's what these two are. And we will actually be hooking up in the video I'm making on the Vega also at the same time. I'll be running, okay, so now I can't tell you because I've done enough of these. This one's your fan relay. And this one is your fuel pump relay, because your fuel pump, one of the wires, your power wire is going to go in there, and then another one's going to go on this side. One of these will be the red wire coming from the fuel pump will go into one side, and then the other side you'll run a wire from key on power, and that hits your fuel pump relay and turns on your fuel pump. Usually I intertwine it with this wire so that both of these wires have key on power, and at the same time you're turning on your fuse block and your fuel pump relay. And that's how I do the swaps, or that's how I hook up these on swaps. And then power to the starter from the harness will be, I mean, it's obvious, it's two red wires. These two red wires go to the big post on the starter right there, and that gets the power from the battery, just like your factory harness wires will. And then these two wires, they're always together. This is for 4L60. This is your main harness plug on the transmission, and this is your your variable speed sensor on the back of the transmission. And those two always are loomed together, and they just go right back there to the transmission. See how I kind of have the harness laid out? So let me throw the intake on it just to give you a better visual of what's going on and where plugs go where. Oh, it's plastic, but it's still kind of heavy. What did I get on my foot? Oh, I just spilled. Fuel all on my foot. Well, only one way to take care of that. Yep. Oh, come on. Of course, that had to be the hardest cap to take off ever. All right. Now that my foot's completely dried out, let's continue. So, let's get the intake on well enough to show you. Okay, that's good enough. That's not 100% on, but it's good enough. And then we will lay the harness back over. And you can always tell which coil pack wires go on which side because, well, come on. I don't know what I did, but I lost you guys there for a second. So the coil pack, it's easy to tell which side the coil pack. So this goes, these are the main coil pack plugs for both sides. And one side has all your wires like this. See all these bunched up wires? These are all for your throttle body, TPS, IAC, water temp sensor, and then your alternator that goes right here. So this one, this 4-prong one is your IAC. No, not that one, we're not there yet. No, not that one. Oh yeah, I was right. So, and this one is your TPS. This one is connected with, this is the mass airflow, all those multicolor 5-prong ones. And this is your alternator. No, that's your map sensor. That goes to the back of the engine. Yeah. Okay, so where was I? So this is your, and then your alternator has just that red wire. Some of them have just a red wire, and then some of them have this red and brown wire. So that'll be your alternator wherever you have it mounted. The one connected with the alternator plug is your water temp sensor. So we'll go ahead and plug that in. So, and then alternator, like I just said. And then here's your TPS, is this goofy looking round one. We will plug that in. What do we have left? We have, so this is your map sensor, where on this engine, it's actually, or on this intake, it's in the back. It's right there. On your Gen 3 truck intakes, it's on top at the back. And then we have mass airflow. Huh, I wonder if this one, if this harness is giving me a mass airflow and a intake air temperature. Because here is your driver side O2 sensor that goes to the O2 sensor. These are all of your injector plugs. So this is, hold on. Now this harness is confusing me because it's a little different, because the one I typically use, of course, is all sold out, or they wasn't available anymore. So that's your main coil pack harness plug. You got your ground, so you have to put this ground that comes along with this side of the harness to the back of the head. This is basically ground for your injectors and whatnot, and it's pretty simple to figure out which injector plug goes where, because you got this one goes to that one, this one goes to that one, this one goes to that one, and then the very front one goes to the very front one. So they basically line up in line with each other. And then you just plug those in, and then you come over to this side And you do the same exact thing. You have your main harness plug. Plug that in. This is your crank, or this is your cam position sensor. And then you just start from the back, or that's how I do it. Start from the back and you see how they line up. This one is at the very back, so this one goes to that one. This one's next, so this one goes to that one. This one's next, because you see how it's shorter, even though they're in loom with each other. The shorter one goes next, and then the long one is for the front. And then, well, I already went over these. This is your passenger side O2 sensor that's on this side of the harness. And then this is your power, like I said a minute ago. And this is your crank sensor. So your crank sensor is always in loom with the power wires, because the power wires go down there, and your crank sensor goes behind the starter right there, which I'm gonna plug in because I need to do that anyways while I'm down here, and I have the starter hanging a little low so I can get back here, and then I can hook up the power wires and then hook up and then put the header on. So yeah, like I said, your O2. Like I said, once you just lay it out, so you can lay the harness either way. It just, my way of knowing which side is which is what wires are on the loom. So like I said, if all your throttle body plugs and your alternator plug and your mass airflow plug are all on one side, that means that side goes to the driver's side, and the other side is your passenger side, because obviously where your stuff hooks up. And then you will also have this ground, which is with your fuse block and computer plugs, and this ground is the ground for the fuse block and the computer plugs. So you can put this ground on the frame, on the body, on the engine. I always put it on the body. I just kind of put it on the fender well or something, or the inner fenders or the firewall, and that's your ground for that. And that is basically it. So you drive-by wire guys, you won't have these two sensors. Your throttle body is completely different, as it runs off of its own computer. So you have to make sure you get the correct harness and computer for whichever throttle body you're running. I personally always prefer drive-by cable, because it is just so much easier, and then you just run a cheap eBay throttle cable to your factory gas pedal, and you don't have to put a drive-by wire gas pedal in there. And then troubleshooting wise, like if you're having issues getting it running, 9 times out of 10 drive-by wire setups, if it's having an issue starting or staying running, it's always a drive-by wire issue, as where you can pretty much eliminate it with drive-by cable if you just stick something right there to keep the throttle body open. That way you can get air if you're having issues with your TPS or your IAC. But that is it. Like I said, this one is a little different, because usually on the other harnesses, like the one I have on that CUDA, the one I've done on past drive-by cable setups, I've used the same harness, but that one wasn't available anymore, so we went with this one. And typically your your map sensor is on the passenger side loom and not the driver side. I don't understand why it's on the driver's side on this one, because it is What is this? Hold on. Maybe this one is the map sensor. And maybe this one is the cam position sensor. Yellow, black, pink, orange, green, gray. Let's look real quick. Because obviously, I don't want to do this whole video and you guys get told the wrong thing. Also, I took this bad boy to LS Fest, if you haven't seen the video. Gray, green, orange. Gray, green, orange. Okay, so I was correct and not correct. The cam position sensor, or the map sensor, is on the passenger side loom. So gray, green, orange. Map sensor. I just went blank. Map sensor. So, and then this one will be, okay, so this one will be your crank sensor. Crank sensor, map sensor on the passenger side loom. I believe I got a harness. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. So this is an IAT sensor. This is what the heck? I'm gonna have to look at the instructions. So I'm gonna put a link down in the description. Of course, this doesn't have all right, so those are useless. That's the instructions. So these wires, these extra ones, because this is for just your 5-pin mass airflow sensor, which is this one. And then the extra ones, usually for like a Gen 4 throttle bodies, or not throttle body, but mass airflow sensor setup. So I'm gonna ignore these because I shouldn't need them since I already have the 5-pin. But I will find a harness that doesn't have these extra wires, because they're useless. They don't do anything. You just want to get the harness that just has the 5-pin for the mass airflow. So you won't have these two wires. You'll just have this one, your IAC, TPS, water temp, and alternator. But hopefully you guys got all that. Hopefully I was pretty specific. And that is it. That's just how you hook it up. Like I said, it's super simple once you do one. After that, I don't even look at the instructions anymore. I know exactly which sensor is which. This one just confused me for a second because it gave me these extra useless plugs. But I hope that helps. Got a little confusing there at the end. If you got any questions, you can comment, whatnot, and I'll do my best to help. But hope that, guys, helps you get your swap going and makes you think of a swap harness not being so confusing. So I'll post a link in the description for a harness, and hopefully that helps. If anything, I made a video with cheap swap parts for an LS swap, and I posted a link to a harness on there, so you can go back and look at that. But I gotta finish this Vega now, so I'll see you all in the next video.